growing number of companies in Europe and around the world that are already using frameworks like integrated reporting framework, really to experiment and to establish good practice as we speak. Some companies go even further. We saw that some companies are now combining integrated reporting with Accountancy Europe's concept of core and more.
Thanks to the non-financial reporting directive, the EU already has a head start in this area. This directive requires large companies, banks and insurance companies to disclose material environmental risks and how they are managed. It both anticipated and accelerated the move of sustainability reporting from the margins to the mainstream.
The European Reporting Lab will be an important building block for innovation in European corporate reporting.
Reporting does have to change. Financial reporting does have to change. It's not broken, it's not failed, but unless it changes, it will.
And then I realized that financial statements was just not sufficient enough to provide a real picture of companies, that we need to consider two different perspectives. One is that we have this accountability, and to what extent are we reporting based on accountability and business ethics? But on the other hand, there is also a lot of decision usefulness, the investment perspective. And to what extent does the information need to be sufficient for investors? And can we combine both types of perspectives?
In the next 3-5 years, what I see is not anymore a dualism between financial and pre-financial information, but more the strategic information.
We believe that all the non-financial data should be collected and prepared with the same rigor as financial information. Use the same sorts of tools, formats, spreadsheets you would financial information. Make this look as comfortable as you can for yourselves as you bring these two together. We need it to be as robust as possible to stack up to assurance provisions if you decide to go. When you decide to go down.
Perhaps in the same way that the EU Action Plan on Sustainable Finance influences development globally, I think the EFRAG lab has the same opportunity to do so.
You need to have a good understanding of an ESG impact, the impact on others, to then have any kind of analysis of a risk or opportunity in a financial sense. There is more and more appreciation for this contextual information from the ESG, and that there will be probably also the attempt to monetize some of these things, and this will bring it together.
I know that the EFRAG's role, as it says here, is to foster innovation in corporate reporting. When you are a practitioner in a company, you might say that innovation and reporting could be some sort of contradiction.
Maybe there are a couple of things that are matters for consideration for the steering group and the lab. I personally do not believe that innovation is about producing papers. It's not about producing reports. It's not about producing even guidelines. It's about doing things. It's about experimenting in practice.
The EU Sustainable Finance Action Plan is more than just reporting. It's basically not only about finance, but about the whole economy. And the phrase is shifting the trillions. What I feel as a data preparer is that in some cases, maybe we put too much effort into reporting and disclosures. And if policymakers would do a better job, then maybe so much reporting wouldn't be required.
The responsibility on the boards and audit please the reports. Why? Because what you say needs to be true, right? And make it compulsory. Why? Because the good guys are doing it already, and we want to create a level playing field so that we have the comparable information for investors. Do not create regulation that is worse than what the markets are doing already. Because you have to bear in mind that if we create this regulation, then that labels what is green, and if we say coal is green, you as a market actors can't go against the tide and say, look, we don't call it green, we call it a hazardous investment.
What I draw from that is clearly your answer is there is a role for regulation, has to be simple but provide comparability, focus on the key issues, and rolled out from another thing I took out from your intervention was rolled out on a sort of progressive basis. Start with what we can do, and then gradually expand the scope as we move through time.
The real question is not whether we should regulate or not. I think the real question is when.
I'm not against regulation whatsoever, but two things we need to keep in mind. The benefits of regulation may be more on the user side, meaning that it's going to be cheaper for investors to actually access an information market-wise. It's going to be more comparable, that I agree. And it's also going to be easier to learn about other firms if everybody is disclosing, because it's going to be a spillover effect. So we get to know more about our peers in the industry as more are reporting information. But I also think that mandating disclosure per se is not going to be enough, because we have evidence from the introduction of IFRS that it's still the institutional environments of the country that have implemented IFRS matter in terms of how company actually complied with the standards.
So, for example, one of the challenges as corporate reporting evolves is that more parts of the organisation need to be involved in the corporate reporting process. That might be a challenge, but that's also an opportunity for integrated thinking, for more joined-up thinking across the organisation. And I noted the point about assurance. That was described as a challenge, but surely for those in the assurance profession, there is a tremendous opportunity to find an offering here that the market demands.